friends. Hello, hello. Hopefully you can hear me. We are luckily not in the path of the hurricane that's heading towards Florida, or maybe in Florida by now. I haven't tracked it since this morning. Sorry, you guys can still. Okay. But we are dealing with remnants of that. So I don't know if you can even hear the major downpour outside. I can barely hear myself talk. But I'm going live anyway. I'm going to be here. I've had several people test. I've just been doing this all day today, and I've been on lots and lots of calls today, and everybody has told me that they can hear me. So I'm going to hope that you guys can hear me, but I don't know what it's going to be like on Facebook. So it's going to be short and sweet today, guys, but I do have something to share with you today. And I want to talk about this. So what I want to share today is like, how do you get there? How can you get there fast? You shift your mindset by get there faster. But I want to share something that I've been actually experiencing in my life and in my business right now. And it's something that I teach my clients to do, and I am living it right now. So I wanted to share this with you, and it's this I call it the phase one concept, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to unpack it. So I want to talk about something that I'm shifting in my business, which I've actually mentioned a couple times on these lives. But I'm in a move. I'm actually almost finished moving. I'm in a new location. You can see I'm actually in a temporary location, new home, but a temporary location for my office. So my backdrop will continue to change over the next few weeks as I set up my office, or as I set up my new office. So I'm doing this in my personal life with the move, and I'm doing this in my business. And this is something, as I said, that I always coach my clients to do. I think it's there is no secret to running a business, but if you want to say there's a secret, I personally think this is one of the secrets, or this is one of the things that successful business owners do really well and give themselves permission to do, that I think is a little counterintuitive to the way that most of us were brought up, to the way that most mainstream, especially North American culture, teaches us to operate. But I think it's the way that running a business is A, a lot more fun, B, a lot more profitable, and C, a lot more effective. So the idea is, and the question to ask yourself when you're in dealing with something in your business or in your life is, what's my phase one? How can or I'll say this to myself, like as if this is a term. What's my phase one? What's the phase one of this? How can I phase one this? However you want to say that. None of this is like proper grammar, but this is just the way that I think about it. So I'll give you a personal example first, because this is something that I think a lot of people can understand. So this comes from, and I've been doing this for a long time, but actually the person that I'm dating, we both came from a consulting background, and we've been using this term a lot lately. And so when you look at phase one, when you think about what I used to do, which was when I was in consulting, we would be brought into organizations to help with specific projects. And so when your project you have like a phase one, a phase two, and oftentimes when you go live with something, let's use technology as an example. So let's say, a finance organization in a big business, in a big company, decides to move from technology system A to technology system B, just to way oversimplify, right? Oftentimes you'll go live with phase one of you'll only go live with one module, or you'll only go live, phase one will be, North America will go live, or Southeast North America will go live, right? Like you pick a bite-sized piece for phase one. You don't implement the entire system for a global country all at once. You usually phase it in by region, you phase it in by or you phase it in by the module or the amount of the system that the people are going to use. And so maybe, for example, so let's keep with this example. So finance, you're using a finance system. Maybe, I'm going to make this up. Maybe only accounts receivable is in your phase one for, let's say, the Pacific Northwest of the US, right? So only people in the Pacific Northwest in the finance function, only those people using accounts receivable will go live first. And you take bite-sized chunks and you deploy that and you see what goes well and you see what doesn't work. And then you take your learnings and you integrate it into phase 2. And when you deploy, or when you go live with phase 2, you take all of those learnings for the next region and they get to benefit, right? So same as beta testing something, right? But let's just stay with this. So phase 1 of any major implementation in consulting is just it's just a baby step, right? Obviously that's what phase 1 is. But when we're talking about running a business and you want to do something different, right? Talking about making a pivot, talking about making a transition, talking about creating a new product, creating a new service, starting to serve a slightly different audience, maybe adding something. Thank you for the hearts. Maybe adding something. Maybe you're starting to write a book. Maybe you're starting a podcast. Maybe whatever it is. How can you phase 1 it? What is your phase 1? So that's, I think we often think, okay, well, if I want to do this big thing, let's just use the writing a book as an example. If I want to do this big thing, I gotta figure out the book. I got to do all my research. I have to write the whole book. And then I have to also figure out what my publication plans are going to be, figure out who I'm serving, right? All these things that you have to do. Oh, wait, but I also want to have a guest writer in. So I have to know who that is and exactly what they're going to do. We have to have a detailed plan before we can even start. Maybe your phase 1 is to write a blog post and throw it up on your website about a piece of this topic. Go ahead and get it out there. Get there sooner, right? It actually gets you there sooner. It also gives you learnings, just like we talked about. If we're going to implement something just in a small area of the country before we roll it out more broadly, how can you implement phase 1 in your whatever is going on so that you can get there quicker, so that you can take something and learn from it? Because what if you don't actually want to do this thing by the time you get out there, but it's taken you a year to set up to write the book, right? Or it's taken you a year to write the first half of the book, and you realize after that you actually want to write about something a little bit different, right? No judgment, that's also part of the creative process. But when we think we have to do everything and plan everything and have everything figured out in our heads before we can even take baby step number 1, or before we can put it out there, phase 1, it's so much slower. It slows us down. And it, frankly, I think just means that it's really, really hard to get anything out the door. Really, really hard to get anything out the door. Okay, I'm just gonna double check that the live is working. Okay, sweet. So just making sure there's no, okay, I'm seeing some hearts. Thank you. I don't see any comments yet. So how can you phase 1 this? So as I'm moving, right, I've been moving for the last week or so. One of the things that we did when we looked at the kitchen, right? I think the kitchen is the hardest thing to unpack. So we have shit all over the kitchen, right? We've got stuff that's got to come out, be reorganized, put back in, blah, 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 right? Packing up is one thing, but putting it into the new space is another. One of the things that we've had a conversation, because it's really overwhelming, right? One of the things that I can get overwhelmed with is wanting to have, because I like to think strategically, right? That's why I'm a good business coach, but I want to think strategically about my kitchen. But other than a few guiding principles, I don't actually know what it's going to be like to live in this kitchen until I freaking live in the kitchen, right? So for me to strategize and go, okay, I need this, this, and this, but I also want to put the spices here and the liquor cabinet here and the plates here and the bowls here. Am I really going to know that before I unpack the kitchen? Most likely no. So in that same way that I talk about a lot of experimenting, how can you phase 1 it? How can you just get some of the boxes unpacked, make the kitchen functional, and start to do your phase 1, do your you know what, I think I might like the spices over here, and I think I might like the food over here, and I feel that the plates up here might be too high, so let's try to move the plates down here, and let's just see how that goes. Let's phase 1 this, and then live it for a few days or a few weeks and see how that feels, and then go from there in an effort to get the I'm just going to be dramatic in my terminology of the optimal like kitchen setup, right? When you move in somewhere. But to assume of yourself that you're going to know exactly how you want to set up a kitchen that you've never lived in is really not fair. And so why are you expecting that? So many of us, I find my clients and so many other people that I talk to, they're going through some level of transition in their business. They're expecting something of themselves as if they are already their future selves and they've lived all this experience and they have all the lessons, but they're not here, they're here, right? And so you have to live, I'm a big believer in experience. I don't think you can get it all perfect the first time. And that's kind of by design. And so I encourage you to phase one your business, to phase one your transition, phase one your next project, phase one freaking anything that you want. It will get it out faster, right? So if I'm going to phase one my kitchen, my job is not to say, oh, I'm just trying to hurry up and do this and to throw shit in the cabinet, right? That's not what I'm suggesting. And I'm not suggesting that you do that with your business. But if you phase one your business in the way that we're going to phase one the kitchen, you're saying, I'm going to do some things that I kind of know off the top of my head. Like I like these, generally speaking, I like these kinds of things together. Maybe in this kitchen I won't, but I'm going to just go ahead and go with that. And I know that these things I use a lot, so I'm not going to put them up too high or too low. I'm going to put them in an easy to reach level. And then the other stuff, I don't really know. So I'm just going to put something in there now and it's organized and I can always move it, but I'm just going to give myself a starting point. So how can you phase one as I'm phase oneing my kitchen? I'm turning this into a verb. What do you need to do in your business to phase one? In your business, so I'll give you another example in my business. So I mentioned this last time. I made an announcement, and it was the last week's live was called like an announcement and an opportunity. So I announced. Feel free to go check it out. I announced that we're going to slightly rebrand this group just a little bit, and so to just know that we're going to change the name here shortly. But I also announced that I am starting an interview series of people, and you're welcome to volunteer for this. I will put the link in the chat or I'll put the link here in the comments as I finish. So I'm interested in maybe creating something that might eventually be a book or a podcast. It may just ultimately be like some form of research, or it may ultimately just be content for my business. And all of these are great with me. So I'm having this idea, I'm feeling the need to birth this thing, but I don't know exactly what I want it to be in the long term. Right now, it feels like a podcast is a really good format for it. But I'm walking my talk. I'm not going to go hire a podcast team and start talking to my existing team about podcasting. I'm not going to, doing a podcast, if we're going to do it, and I want to say right, but if you're going to do it with a lot of intention behind it and to do I would want to do a full launch. It takes time, energy, and I don't want to go there while I'm still thinking it through. So rather than sitting here in my chair and just forcing myself to think about it until it gets to be perfect in my head, I know that the way that I operate and the way that most people operate is I have to live it. I have to start creating it while I'm still thinking it through. And so that's what I'm doing in phase one of it. Okay. So I'm taking, where is the baby step that you can take? Where is I know enough to just do something. So I'm starting to do interviews of people. If you're interested in talking about your pivot, your transition in your business, whether you have done one already or whether you're smack dab in the middle of it, or if you're kind of like me, where you're like starting to birth something and you're not quite sure where it's going to go, but you're in that beginning stage. I don't care if you're starting, middle, or ending, looking back in hindsight. I'm interested in talking to people about their pivots, about their transition, about what they wish they'd known, where they wish they'd given themselves a little more grace, and paying that forward for everybody else who's going through a transition and a pivot, because everybody goes through transitions and pivots in their businesses. And I really don't know any happy, fulfilled, or successful business owner who has not gone through at least one pivot or transition, however large or small, in their business, because we are creators. We are creating, you created your business out of thin air. It's reasonable, if you really think about it, it's reasonable to expect that You're going to grow and evolve over time, and so will your business. Look at all the big businesses out there. They've all grown and evolved over time. And so I really want to normalize the personal experience that business owners go through, small business owners go through when they pivot. And so I'm not exactly sure how I want to present it in the future. It would be really fun to do a podcast. I kind of always wanted to do a podcast, but is this going to be the podcast, or is the podcast going to be something else? I'm not going to force myself to decide. I'm going to start to live it. I'm going to phase one it, and I'm going to start talking to people, because that's really the essence of what I want to do. I want to talk to people about their pivots and their transitions, and I want to learn more about the experience, even though I've been studying this shit my whole adult career. I've been studying how people change in organizations and how we change individually from a psychology perspective. But I want to keep talking about it. I want to keep learning, and I want to keep sharing what I think I know. I want to test some of that out. I want to share this and put something out into the world that will help other business owners. And so that's enough for me to know to phase one it. That's enough for me to know to phase one it. And so my phase one for this is, it may become a podcast, but my phase one for this is I'm just going to start talking to people, and I'm going to not just talk to people privately, but I'm going to find a way to put it out into the world, see how it feels for me, see how it's received by others, see how the interviewees feel, and live it, learn some things from it, and then take the next step from there. And I have a format. I mean, I have an audience here in our Facebook group. And so you lovely souls are going to get to benefit from all these really talented, really quite magical people. I've already started talking to some people about seeing if they want to collaborate with me and be an interviewee, and you're going to get to benefit from it. So if nothing else, I will learn something. If this goes nowhere, I will learn something. You will learn something. They will get exposure to their business. Everybody wins, and I get to phase one this before I go through the pain of putting together something like a podcast that I'm not even finished thinking through. So this is what I want to just encourage you. Where can you phase one whatever's going on in your life, right? So moving, I'm phase oneing my kitchen. I'm actually phase oneing my whole house, if you want to be honest. But where can you, but everything starts with something, right? I didn't like sit in my house the first day with empty boxes and go, okay, what's the perfect strategy for this move? No, I just went into a room where the stuff is that I don't use very often. I just started putting some boxes together. Then I started putting a strategy together once I got some things sort of out of the way. But you don't have to have a detailed, you can have a strategy, right? So I have a strategy right now. I have this concept. I have this thing I want to create. I have a general idea of what that's going to look like, and I know who's involved. And I found a place to put it to start with. That's enough, right? So that's enough of a strategy. That's enough of a structure. It doesn't mean that I'm doing it willy-nilly and I don't know what I'm doing. And this is where I think a lot of people want to tell you, like, you have to have clarity, and you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have a strategy, and you have to have a plan. And while I think all of those things are really important in business, and I help my clients to do all of those things, there is a time and a place for a plan. There is a time and a place for a strategy. And there's also a time and a place for creativity, and finding ways to intersect those and to put what you want to put out into the world as soon as you possibly can, not because it's about timing, but because if you have a brilliant idea, and I'm also a big believer in the back burner list. Not every big idea is meant to be implemented, and not every big idea that's meant to be implemented is meant to be implemented right now. So we do have to filter through that. So I want to, please don't hear me that like now you need to go execute 17 of your biggest ideas. No, put a list together. But the ones that are calling you, this one's calling me. I had 2 or 3 that were calling me all at once, and all of a sudden this one's become the front runner as I've started to give each one a little bit of attention. So now I know what's on my back burner list and what's on my front runner list, and this is it. I don't need to know everything. I don't have to have a podcast team and a name. I don't have a name for this thing. Let's pretend it does become a podcast. I don't have a name, right? I don't need a name right now. What I really need to do is play with the content and see what this becomes. before I decide to go to the trouble of putting it out in a more in a phase 2 or phase 3 kind of way, right? So phase 1 might just be to be having these interviewing and conversations. Phase 2 would probably be to land on, okay, this is how I want to do it, but it's not quite how I started. And I want to do a little bit of these kinds of people and a little bit of these kinds of people. And I'd like to actually tag team with somebody. I don't want to do it all by myself. I want a team interview. So we're going to, 2 of us are going to interview people, right? So I might land on sort of what that looks like while I'm continuing to, and then I can start to do the proper, like what everybody thinks about, all the execution, all the to-do lists, all the, you know, podcast team stuff that people do. Then that's really like phase 3, right? It's the ideation that's happening now. Once you get past a little bit of that ideation, you can get going if you want to, if you're feeling called. And I find so often people feel that in order to get their big ideas out the door, it has to take a year, or it has to take 6 months, or it has to be done in this very detailed step-by-step way. And yes, there is a phased approach to it, but sometimes phase 1 can still be some sort of implementation, can still be some sort of getting it out the door. It's just not in its final format, right? In the same way that you take, you know, a chapter in your book and you have somebody read it for your feedback. It doesn't mean that you've written the whole book, but you can still get feedback and start to evolve your thinking about the characters as you're writing, as you've already written, you know, chapter number 1. And I personally think that that's how the world gets to benefit from stuff, right? Because so much of what's been put out in the world does not, you know, if you're waiting till it's perfect, it's going to take you so much longer. And the world needs what it is that you've got in your brain. We need some good stuff in this world, right? We need more good stuff. We have some good stuff in this world. We need more good stuff in the world. And if you're in this group right now, my friends, you've got some good stuff to share with the world. So don't hold on to it all until it's perfect. Start to get it out there in any way, shape, or form that you can. If you're an artist, share a half-baked, half-done painting. Same idea, right? Show a picture of your painting. If you're a painter, you know, throw that on Facebook, throw that in social media, see what, like, start to share it before it's done. You never know what might happen when you start to engage with your audience in that way. And there's a whole like customer experience sort of marketing element to this too. But I say this more to you as a business owner, because the thing that I care about the most is your creativity, is your fulfillment, is your impact. Then there's always a good way to market something. There's always a good way to make extra money. There's always a good way to monetize what you've got as your passion, as your work. But I care mostly about you as an artist, as a business owner, who, by the way, are all artists. We're all artists. We're all creators. I care so much about your process and your fulfillment, because if it's something that lights you up, it's going to light the shit out of other people up too. And that's what I think that we're all meant to be doing in the world. So I digress, but where can you phase 1, whatever's going on in your business, whatever you're changing, whatever pivot's happening, find a way to phase 1 it, find a way to baby step it, find a way to get it going so that you can receive feedback. And I don't mean like ask people what they think, that might be an element of it, but so that you can see when you put something out there, you know then you really know what it feels like to put something out there. And then you're probably going to be more likely to be able to put the next level of something out there and the next level of something out there, right? So many people I talk to, and so many of my clients, their work is so deeply personal. It can feel very vulnerable to share your work. And so if you're waiting for like a year's worth of work to be able to be shared, then it's even more scary. And when you can sort of give yourself that grace and space to just start sharing and start putting things out there, you're making an impact. You're receiving feedback for yourself about what it feels like, for your creativity about what it's becoming, and then for sure, but from your audience, if that's a piece of your process. So where can you phase 1 it, my friends? Happy Wednesday. I hope that you can hear me over the rain. I hope you're having a lovely week. I am excited to bring you our first interview next month. I don't have the dates yet, but I will share that as soon as I have them. If you're interested in chatting with me and sharing here in the Facebook group, but potentially even wider, depending on what this becomes. If you're interested in sharing, it's truly just, and I'm calling it an interview, but it really is you and me having a very unscripted, organic conversation about your experience running a business and what you've learned and how your pivots and transitions have made you what you are today. What you wish you'd done differently, if anything, what you wish you'd known from the beginning. And if you're in the middle of a pivot and you feel comfortable sharing that vulnerability, I'm particularly interested in speaking with you because I think we want to button it all up and make it sound pretty and share our wisdom. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that is, there's a piece of this this project that will be that. But I also want to talk to people who are smack dab in the middle of it. As somebody said to me the other day, they're in the fear and they're feeling the fear and doing it anyway, right? When you feel that everything is shutting down, that everything is closing down, that everything is shifting and you're almost like, I don't even know where we're going, but it's changing. I want to talk about the messiness of that. I want to talk about the vulnerability of that. I want to talk about the depth of how personal your work is, that can be scary as fuck. And it's also so beautiful because it's all for your evolution and for your creative process. So if you're interested in sharing your story, that's really what this is. It's just an easy, organic conversation one-on-one with me that we'll put here in the group. I'd love, love, love to talk to you. All you have to do, I do not have a formal process, application process right now. I really just want to talk to people. So hop on a quick 30-minute phone call with me. We'll find out if this is something that you want to do. And I'll get a sense of like where you are in your transition, where in my process that I would want to put you in the schedule. And if it's a fit, then we'll just agree to a couple things and then we'll have an organic conversation. So it's just a 30-minute setup call to decide if this is a good fit. There's no thing you have to pay. There's no thing you have to do. We'll both promote it. And you'll also get some exposure for your business too. There'll be a whole segment in that interview where you get to talk about what you do and what you've got going on. You can promote your work too. All right, so I'll put the link here. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great, great Wednesday, and I will see you next week, same time.